themselves from the fighting, gunmen exchanged fire with security forces still positioned inside a police station, which has become the focus of much of the fighting. Mr. Yehya, if we start by saying, how do you see the current situation on the ground, the violence erupting in different governorates all over Egypt, and how do you explain this?
Of course, it's very tragic, very sad. We don't know exactly what's going on. There is no transparency in the declarations about these incidents all over Egypt. This is unprecedented violence all over Egypt, in very specific cities like Port Said and Suez and so on. So the people are very worried about the future, about the present even. We didn't have any explanation about what happened, who did this and who did that. So far the government failed to provide the people with any information about the situation. We don't know the killer, we don't know about the assassinations of these innocent civilians. Unfortunately they declared a state of emergency in these cities without explaining anything, without explaining who is the murderer, who is the victim, and where these weapons came from and such. So the people are worried. The people in other even cities are very worried about their security, the security of their families, their people. The government owe us an explanation, owe us a responsibility. They should take responsibility for these actions, and they should declare their responsibility and tell the people what is the real situation there. We heard about heavy guns, we heard about assassination in the streets. It's unprecedented in Egypt, and so far we don't have any explanation.
And moving on to another headline from the New York Times, and we read, regarding the role of the army, Chief of Egypt's army warns of collapse as chaos mounts. Reacting to Egypt's growing chaos, the head of the army warned on Tuesday of the collapse of the state if political forces in the country did not reconcile, reflecting growing impatience with the crisis from Egypt's most powerful institution. The continuation of the conflict between different political forces and their disagreement on running the affairs of the country may lead to the collapse of the state and threatens the future of the coming generations, said General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is also the defense minister, adding that the attempt to affect the stability of the state institutions is a dangerous matter that harms Egyptian national security. How do you see the current role of the army? Especially, it's a very welcomed role now, and the people who said that the army should give up the political life and should give up power last summer, now they are calling that the army comes back in order to preserve the security situation.
Exactly. This is a very exceptional situation. People call for the army to intervene because the failure of the government, because the failure of the Ministry of Interior. So far, the political elite, or the political leaders in Egypt failed very, very badly in this situation. They didn't declare the responsibility, they didn't explain anything to the people. So the army is the last resource for the people and for the security in Egypt. Unfortunately, the security forces have collapsed. The police, they cannot control. The nerves are very high and very angry. So in this situation, normally the government calls the army to intervene because traditionally the army has a national role in our politics in Egypt.
And a role that was also welcomed during the January 25th revolution.
Exactly. It's the same almost because we are passing now in a very similar situation to the days before 25th of January. We hope that the situation will improve so soon. The army would control the situation and the people would help also in calming the nerves. But I think the big failure here is in the government part. That failed. Even the prime minister was outside the country when this happened. So it's unexplicable situation for the government. They should declare amendments in the constitution. They should correct their fatal errors in the politics, they insisted and they angered the whole or the majority of the people here by their way to make the constitution, by their way to appoint the prosecutor general, in their way to declare the emergency state without consulting the Shura Council of the Parliament right now. So they did many mistakes in very short time, and this is the result now we are facing.
And another headline regarding the dialogue talks from Al-Ahram Online, we read, President's dialogue talks yield promise to form committee to study constitutional change. Egyptian President Morsi's national dialogue talks lead to formation of committee to study constitutional amendments. Egypt's national dialogue talks called for by President Mohamed Morsi have resulted in an agreement to form several committees, one of which will study possible amendments to the newly passed constitution, a key opposition demand. The largest opposition grouping, the National Salvation Front, boycotted the talks on Monday, which were mostly attended by groups close to the Muslim Brotherhood, from which Morsi hails. Mr. Yehya, do you think that the problem is really in the constitution or there are other demands? And also, how do you see the results of the talks?
The problem is in the mentality of the government, of the leadership right now. They don't care about the people. We have seen so many casualties in the streets. We have seen many injured, and they don't even care. They don't even care to correct their errors. They should study their history, their past history in this short time, and they should correct.
But I mean, if the constitution is amended
Yes.
as many of the people would like to, do you think that this could solve the situation?
I think it is very, very sad that we are talking about amending the constitution, newly born constitution that 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago we had the constitution passed, and after 1 week or 2 weeks we are talking about amending. This shows that they did it in the wrong way. They didn't have a vision, they didn't consult the people, they didn't consult the political parties in Egypt, they didn't care about the feelings of the people, and this is the result. The problem is not in the constitution itself maybe, but it's in the way, how did they make, dealing with the situation in the street, dealing with the feelings of the people, declare in place of trying to talk to the people, to explain to them. They are declaring emergency, they're declaring measurement, the security measurements, and this cannot control the situation. This cannot improve the situation. This cannot calm the feelings in Egypt. The people are very angry. Prices are high. Unemployment.
So it's not only the constitution.
It's not only the constitution.
But how do you see the results of the talks?
It's the lack of the vision of this government and this leadership. The result of the talk, I'm not optimistic in this case because many parties didn't participate. Many parties were not even invited to these talks. They invited some and excluded some. And you cannot treat a very dangerous situation in Egypt with this very small mentality and very narrow-minded vision to the situation. We should call for a real reconciliation, a real dialogue between the whole, for example, the part of the revolutionary people, the youth, in Egypt, they didn't invite. They just invited the head of the parties. Yes. But the people in the street are not controlled by these parties. They have their own leadership. Sometimes they need representatives. They need to talk to their representatives in the street and to invite them to talk. The local parties or the political parties are not everything. And they didn't even call all of them to. So they, as the Salvation Front said, it's useless because you have to change your mind. You have to change your vision to try to save this country from the chaos that's going on right now.
And now moving on to another headline from the Times regarding Egypt's economy, we read, from bad to worse, economic woes may compound Egypt's pain. The bad news for Egypt is that the deadly turmoil that has gripped the streets of some of the country's main cities since last Friday threatens to grow worse in the month ahead. That's because President Mohamed Morsi's plans to save Egypt's sinking economy hinge on a loan agreement with the International Monetary Fund requiring the imposition of tough austerity measures that will further erode the living standards of many of those already calling for his ouster. Again, the issue of the loan from the International Monetary Fund, because many economic analysts say that this is not the solution for the Egyptians' economy now. So what's the plan to save Egypt's economy in light of all the developments we are passing through now?
We are in total chaos right now. We don't know. I don't think that the loan would save Egypt from the crisis. The crisis is going on. It's from all our mistakes. We cannot blame the international community because of our mistakes. We have to correct our mistakes, correct our errors. We cannot depend on loans anymore. This has been failed for the last 50 or 100 years or more than that. Egypt is not like this. We remember that in the 19th century, we started to have loans, and we were indebted, very heavy indebted, and we had to even sell the Canal of Suez. This was the start of the invasion of Egypt and the colonization of Egypt. This is a very dangerous thing, and they should not take this loan or any other loan. They should depend on this country, depend on the resources of this country. They should depend on the people of this country. They should talk to them. They should open the creativity.
And have stability in order to attract, for example, the investments from abroad.
Nobody will invest in this country like this. Nobody will give you loans in this country, in this situation, because he doesn't want to lose his money or his assets. So this government should be more wise and look for the real problems, for the roots of the problems, which the politics and the stability of this country, and then the investment and the employment and the work will come as a fruit.
And from Al-Ahram Online, we read that the rich Arabs' betrayal of Egypt. With the exception of Qatar, the oil-rich Arab states are watching rather indifferently as 90 million Egyptians reel under a harsh, unprecedented economic and financial crisis. The Egyptians, by nature, are a dignified and proud people who wouldn't beg for help. However, rich Arab states have a religious, moral, nationalist, and human duty to extend a helping hand to their older sister, without whom their very existence, let alone their sovereignty and national dignity, would be precarious. Egypt is not just another Arab country. Egypt is the heart and soul of the Arab nation, without which Arab states, irrespective of their money-filled coffers, would be condemned to utter insignificance both at the regional and international levels. Hence, helping Egypt stand up tall at this time of need is not a form of charity or self-abnegation on the part of rich Arabs. So this headline is really a strong one, I consider, from Al-Ahram. And can we consider it really a betrayal from the Arab countries?
Well, first of all, we didn't receive anything even from Qatar. We just received a loan that we should pay and repay it again with interest, and it was like an asset in the central bank in Egypt, just to guarantee some payments. But it's not an aid or no, it's a loan. Yes, we should for granted. No, we should repay it back. So well, this is our mistake again. We should not depend on anybody. We should depend on ourselves. We have many resources. We just need organization. We just need a system to put things in their place. But right now, in this chaos and this lack of leadership, we cannot create anything. Debts will get more and more, and we cannot pay all of it. I think it's a very bad situation. It may lead to an economic domination of other countries over Egypt, like Qatar, for example, is buying assets and lands, and even they're talking about the Canal of Suez. So it's very dangerous, and it may lead in some time to international or exterior intervention in Egypt. This is the most important thing. We cannot depend on this.
And from the Christian Science Monitor, we read, in Port Said, alienation from Cairo makes anger burn hotter. The violent upheaval in the Suez Canal city of Port Said has deeper roots than the resentment towards President Mohammed Morsi that triggered protests elsewhere in Egypt. Egyptians gathered outside a mosque yesterday in this Suez Canal city